Well, it's great to see you again, Alison, and thanks very much for sparing some time to talk to me today. And most people will know you as our president-elect. For those who are not members or those who don't know, perhaps you could briefly introduce yourself and your job and your background.
Well, thanks, Kevin. I'm delighted to be here and have the opportunity to introduce myself and discuss some of the strategy items that we're going to be launching. So I've been working in occupational hygiene since the early 80s in the energy and petrochemical industry within Shell, and more recently as a consultant since 2017. So, like many others, I began in general health and safety role, but it wasn't long before I found my interest lay in the intrigue of occupational hygiene and opening people's eyes to recognizing and managing chronic health risks. And in my early years, lead, asbestos, silica, legionella, benzene, used engine oils, noise, welding fume were all items that were in my frame and action list, not to mention the old newfangled computers, which caused some trauma in those early days. So, and I think it's no surprise that most of those items you could hear as problems still today. But I began in Shell UK and then branched out into Shell's international operations. And that coincided with the big globalization drive in the 90s and noughties. And these were exciting times as the company did develop and roll out its HSE management systems. And I had the opportunity to play a key role in developing the company's health risk assessment processes as a core requirement supporting the systematic review of workplace health risks across the breadth of its operations and countries of operation. So I was really, in a way, have had a very lucky break, to be right in at the ground, pulling together systematic health risk assessment. And more recently, my focus has been on chemical risk management driven by regulations such as REACH, and that's aligned to the cradle to grave product stewardship activities, supporting, as we all, one of the buzzwords, companies licensed to operate, and also with an eye to the cradle to grave product stewardship and sustainability and the circular green economy, to get a few buzzwords in. And all of these, of course, are important perspectives in the skill set of an occupational hygienist. So that's a snapshot of what I've been up to over the last 40 odd years.
Well,
Can you believe it?
You're a great advert for occupational hygiene as a career. And you left Shell and you're working independently now, aren't you?
That's right. Yes, I am. There was one of these many reorganizations that companies have, and the one that suddenly turned up and at the right time for me was when Shell took over BG Group, and this organization had a big footprint in the UK, and so opportunities for those that wish to leave. You could put your hand up and you pretty much said, yes, that's fine. And so it gave me the chance to think, well, I still got some energy for things and for passion for occupational hygiene. And so I took that opportunity knowing that I could then move on and do a bit more volunteering and give a bit back to the profession. As I found over the years, being in corporate Shell, there was not much time for all of that. They certainly got a pound of flesh out of me. So here I am, so finding myself as president-elect, which wasn't quite what I had planned, but I'm delighted to be here and do my bit for the society.
And you decided to join without realising that we were going to have quite an eventful
Yes.
year so far. So I think most presidents elect for BOHS have had some work to do, but you've been very engaged, not least because of COVID.
Yes, it has been a bit of a baptism of fire, I might say. And indeed, I was pulled into the presidential trio even before I had become president-elect. As March came round, and it was clear that this pandemic was going to be something of a focus. But I think with that, though, as we know, you get these challenges, but also with those challenges, you get opportunities. And I think under your guidance, Kevin, as well, we have managed to sort of maximise make the most of those opportunities. But I think one of the things that I know, consider is that once we get this pandemic coming under control, we are going to have, effects on the economy. This will take centre stage. And our key core aim of prevention over cure, this is one of the buzzwords I keep throwing out there to various other professional colleagues, should be a key focus for a viable and sustainable economy. And I recall many years ago when the quality bandwagon was on the go, the quality motto of do it right first time equally applies, I think, to preventing worker ill health with a clear business case, as well as the importance of, bringing in the ethical point of view. So we've had lots of opportunity. And I mean, I mentioned earlier that I haven't really been that much involved so much with BOHS in recent times, but coming in now, it's clear that we've had an excellent foundation on which to build our chartership, and now, with our chartership now well established, and we've got the annals going forward from strength to strength. And we've also got a good take up of our qualifications, which are bringing in a healthy income for the society. And the way that our office staff have responded, challenging time, and actually moving to deliver all exams remotely and our webinars, and the fact that we managed to do our virtual OH 2020, which eventually we realised we weren't going to get it as face-to-face, and then followed up by the FAR conference just a few weeks later, has been an incredible challenge, and not least with remote working. So a lot going on there, and of course we've had our expert working groups, which have been set up at short notice and working at speed to deliver the guidance and commentary, highlighting some uncomfortable truths and what we've all seen, shocking worker health protection failures witnessed, and I don't think any of us could really believe it initially, in the healthcare sector. And looking for a positive spin, discussing risk, though, does seem to be becoming more of a routine, and we even see it out there in the general public, are starting to try and get to grips with it, having to decide for themselves whether they are able to go out and about, and how they should apply the COVID rules, and how they apply them to themselves. So I do think that this is, coming back to an opportunity, that this change in attitude to considering risk in all activities, and the recognition that the input from specialists can help to understand the risks and how to manage that is important. So
and we've got, and you're going to be sort of taking up your presidency in that other great area of unknown, which is sort of Brexit and the sort of pandemic, sort of economic climate, etc. And where do you think the society should be going in terms of meeting those challenges that are raised by things like being de-linked from Europe, the economic challenges, etc. What are your views about the society's priorities? We've got some strategic aims around partnership and enhancing our scientific portfolio. What are your views about this?
No, absolutely, Kevin. We really need to be taking some sort of a close look. And as you say, Brexit being still fairly unclear, I think, on how it's going to impact us in the current regulatory framework. And, one area of particular interest to us is the limit values and how those are going to be set going forward, and any implications that might bring with alignment with our EU neighbours and major trading partners. And obviously we have a key interest in this, and maybe this is an area that, as the society can offer to support in this area, in particular as we've got access to all of our members in different walks of life and different industries. This could really be a useful we could offer a useful resource to our government colleagues and HSE regulators here. I also think we need to constantly look ahead and be prepared to adapt to the changing landscape. And a good example is the change in how universities are operating. And we've seen availability of first degree courses in pure occupational hygiene disappear, and MSc also struggling to get sufficient students to make up running the courses worthwhile. As we all have seen it, that universities are forced to focus on income, and then there are some unfortunate consequences to that and things that might drop off. And so perhaps, we should be seeking to link occupational hygiene to other sister topics such as environmental science, for a joint degree. But another aspect of that, is, are we confident that the academics of the future and exposure science are being nurtured so that we have the capability to investigate and be attuned to spotting and understanding potential new hazards and their implications? Will we have those key expertise out there to help, keep us, in the moment and up to date? And I think, with this and more in mind, we have considered it important, and coming back to our strategy, that we have now developed this higher education strategy. And I think it's important that that's centre stage to help to enhance our technical and research capabilities and thereby support occupational hygiene through that route. So yes, lots of changes happening, and lots of things that we need to sort of not just watch it pass by and then see that we can sort of jump in at some point. To we need to be prepared and have a plan to allow us to react.
And you touch on partnerships with universities and our scientific. I mean, one of the impressive things about BOHS is the depth and range of national and international relationships, and how we bring scientific, industrial, regulator knowledge together, etc. And you've been really working to sort of map out what those relationships are and how we bring them together and make the best of it. Now, can you explain to me what you found in this sort of voyage of discovery around our sort of multifarious relationships and the influence of BOHS?
Yeah, no, it has been a very interesting voyage of discovery. But one of the things that I had in my career, I was lucky enough to actually work in many multidisciplinary teams, sort of within and across companies and with other organisations, and I appreciated pretty early on the benefits of collaborative working, and not only bringing together different expertise from both personal and professional perspectives also. And as you mentioned, my theme, I thought I would bring a focus to those BOHS partnerships. And as an initial step, so I've been mapping out, as you say, the existing and active collaborations that BOHS has. And this mind map, as those that have seen it, is growing rapidly. I have to say that it's proving a useful means to capture the diversity of our connections and readily identify where we do and don't have representation, and whether these are aligned to our goals that we're setting ourselves in society. And I've noticed that the organisations seem to group very nicely into 8 themes: the education and research, government, professional bodies, trade associations, and umbrella organisations, and also standards, and quite a large international contingent, and also other third sector, those that don't fit easily in other of the boxes. And as I mentioned, I've been impressed at the extent of our current collaborative network. It goes from government-sponsored groups such as the Council for Work and Health, with representation from a broad spectrum of organisations involved in workplace health, to cross-industry forums such as the Health and Construction Leadership Group, Construction Does Partnerships, LEV Forum, Asbestos Leadership Group, to name a few. Then we have our links to the government via the HSE and into the international arena via IOHA, which in turn actually brings us links to the United Nations and the World Health Organization. I don't know that many of us are really aware that we do have fingers in those pies. And we're also, more recently, we've become part of this newly formed European Union occupational hygiene platform. So allowing us to maintain some connections after Brexit. And there's an initial focus on promoting a standard occupational hygiene curriculum across Europe, with which we feel, I think, is well placed as with our own, skills and qualifications, and also courses, etc., that we can offer something here to help sort of spread it across and link us in. So yes, it has been an interesting, and I like to think a very worthwhile exercise, and also helping our head office staff, many of whom have changed over in recent times, to really have a snapshot and overview in one place of what we're doing and where we're doing it, and who within our membership are the volunteers that are actually active in those areas. And of course, there's many opportunities, we hope, for others as well.
And it is phenomenal, because I mean, it's a map that Mercator would be proud of. And all of those links are through volunteers, they're through individuals, etc. And there are tens, if not hundreds, of relationships we have. So with so many partnerships and so many relationships, how do you see those developing? How do you see those relationships being forged and promoted to actually promote occupational hygiene and the profession itself?
Yes, no. So as we've been saying, from this mapping, I've actually picked out some of the BOHS members who are involved, and one has to be impressed by the dedication of our volunteers, who give up a significant amount of their time to support the aims of society. And it's important that all our volunteers keep connected with the society, so that we are targeting in our activities and aligned with our strategic aims. So we need to be, I think, developing structures for engaging with our volunteers, and indeed encourage, we'd like more members to come forward to participate. It's not a closed shop. There are opportunities here for people to develop their own professional skill set, broader than just your own occupational hygiene expertise, but developing your presentation skills and your ability, negotiating skills, influencing skills, and all of these things, and also seeing life from other perspectives of other professions as well. So it brings a lot that can enhance our profession, and also through it help us to promote the understanding of the importance of prevention over cure message, so that we use all of those opportunities. But Kevin, I think one thing that we've been discussing in our trio calls, that we all admit that our profession does not yet have a broad diversity amongst our membership, and this is something else that I think that we as a society would like to try and address, and particularly like to encourage our younger members not to be afraid to put themselves forward to take up volunteering opportunities. And via our higher education strategy and outreach, to also seek to encourage a greater diversity of ethnicity, etc., by promoting our profession and its excellent rewards it brings, and trying to encourage more people that perhaps in the current way that people find themselves becoming into occupational hygiene may actually be missing out on that opportunity. So I think there is much there that we can build on.
And then, I mean, there really is something for everyone in terms of occupational hygiene, in terms of our partnership links, etc. And without trying to put you on the spot or sort of highlight any, do you think there are any particular partnerships that over the course of this year where you thought actually that's really worked incredibly well in for both the organisations involved, the individuals, etc. And that's a kind of a great example which we can replicate elsewhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, I think it has been a critical piece of the jigsaw, in achieving success, these partnerships. And there are several examples where those partnerships have worked well, and we can look, more broadly to our Breathe Freely campaign, which is out there and has been excellent, and it's been utilising, to great effect, the collaboration with the industry partners brought together via groups such as the Health Leadership Construction Group. But as you mentioned, the pandemic has accelerated, in fact, closer collaboration with our occupational health colleagues, in SOM and in FOM. We've I think been dancing around each other a bit in recent years, and we've been wanting though to work together, more collaborative, because working together with a similar aims, you get bigger bang for your buck, as it were, as we come with many more members if we work together as associations. And I've been really pleased how that's gone. And right early on, as soon as the pandemic hit, there had already been talk of having our occupational hygiene multidisciplinary team forum to be set up last year. But when this pandemic hit, it gave the impetus for us to actually get that going properly. And we started, I think I had our first call in late March, when things was hotting up with the pandemic, and we were seeing all those terrible pictures on the news with people not wearing the right respirator, or if they did have the right respirator, incorrectly wearing it, and all of this, and that pulled us all together and gave us an impetus. And indeed, we have been having weekly meetings in which we've been discussing the different perspectives and collaborating on joint statements and pushing where we could push. And that has really worked well. And although we're not now at the moment meeting weekly, we're still engaged, maybe on a 3-weekly, monthly basis, monitoring, and indeed have been developing some, it's also part of this collaborative working is relationships and trust in each other, and managing those trusts so that you can actually feel confident with each other.
And it's not only been about COVID. So I know that you're a secret LEV fan, and the relationship with iLevy, what we're getting from working with them has been really great this year.
Yes. No, absolutely. I was invited to join, or BOHS was invited, and then I was in turn, as Kevin did find out, that LEV is a bit of a passion, and so I was asked if I would join the steering group of iLevy, and so we've been working closely with our iLevy colleagues. And clearly to mutual benefit, and helping each other to develop, and iLevy, which is still a relatively new professional society, trying to work with them and give some of our knowledge and guidance around that, but plus also bringing the links together so we can improve what we're doing in order to actually help them in what they're trying to deliver. So yes, so that's another good example. Thanks, Kevin, for that.
Well, it's just been such a great example of two organisations who have this real passion for professional development, etc., working together. I mean, I think what people don't always see is how the volunteers at all levels are so instrumental in really invaluable change. And the cooperation, for example, in putting together the sort of templates for reporting on LEV, was very much sort of driven by iLevy, but really informed by the work of some of our BOHS specialists and volunteers. But no, that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been able to engage. And no, in many ways, that's a sort of a very good example of how our volunteers engaging in partnership are really enabling change in occupational hygiene, and even indulging in some sort of secret pleasures like LEV discussions. Everyone
Such
has
a
to have a
critical control equipment, critical push it up the hierarchy, as they say. Yes, yes.
and it's you highlighted the sort of the kind of diversity aspects that we really need to do a lot more, in the inclusivity. And I mean, this year, using technology, and some of us are more confident with it than others, goodness me. Using technology has really allowed a lot more people to engage together, and more international engagement. And I think, do you see that some of the legacies of COVID in terms of our virtual communities, do you see these as enablers of longer term partnership opportunities?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's clear that have become, I mean, we have all got more used to working together and seeing how things, can have a better outcome, hopefully. And the fact that we are all now used to working remotely, and that seems to work very well. And indeed, I mean, the first regional meeting that we had, which was well put together by Mary Cameron from the Midlands region, and utilising our newfound gift of doing webinars, etc. In that Midlands meeting, I noticed that there were people from afar afield, as Qatar calling in, giving us opportunities to sort of think beyond the region, as it were. And so, yes, absolutely, I think it's put us all in a much more agile place, and opening up our ideas of opportunities to sort of get our message out there, and be perhaps a little bit more imaginative in how we do that. So yes, so as I think I mentioned as one of my first comments here, that challenges do bring opportunities, and I think this is a clear example of that. And I'm sure under your guidance, Kevin, we are going to build on that.
Well, touch wood, by the time you take over the presidency, we'll be slightly out of the lockdown phase, etc. Is there anything you're particularly looking forward to as the end of lockdown, either personally or professionally, or in terms of the society?
I think, yes, it's allowing us to get back to meeting face to face, to having those relationships. Is one thing to be chatting quite nicely, that we're all getting more used to having our video showing on our computers, but there's nothing like sitting down and having a natter with people of like-minded, and sharing expertise, etc., but also ending up in the bar afterwards and chewing the cud. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And I must admit, I am feeling a little bit cheated this year, because, of course, as president-elect, you have that opportunity to be invited, force your way into the region and say, I'm coming to see you, like it or not, and have given the floor to sort of chunter on about what particularly interests you or whatever, and to gauge with the region. So I am feeling that not to have had that chance as yet, anyway, to get out to the different regions and to see everybody face to face, is certainly something I'm very much looking forward to.
Well, I know that the conference team in head office are working on, and the conference committee are working on the basis that the next year's conference, we are going to try and make it face, and it will be the best society event that we've ever done. That is how everybody feels cheated about not having a sort of face-to-face conference, so we're going to try and make sure it's there. So it's one of those places where I hope we'll get as many members there, and if they can't physically attend, we're going to try and make it virtual. Not as good, but we'll try and make sure that we are as open as possible. Alison, it's always
Yeah.
a great pleasure talking to you. Your enthusiasm and passion for occupational hygiene in society is such a tonic, and we're really looking forward to what the next years have in store. But thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
No, thank you, Kevin. It's been a pleasure.